They're saying this is going to be the toughest test of Islam Makhachev's career. However, I look at this in a different light. I look at this matchup in a different light because we've seen this before. We kind of saw the light version of this matchup, and now we're going to see the revamped version of these two fighters here at UFC 311. Arman Tsarukyan is up there when it comes to talent, when it comes to wrestling, when it comes to striking. Islam Makhachev, his striking has been retooled over the years, one of the best defensive strikers out there, and this is going to be a clash that's really going to be a science experiment. The one thing I can definitely claim with this matchup, that it's going to be fun to watch, that you're going to be on the edge of your seats from beginning to end, because you do not know what's going to happen with Arman Tsarukyan. When you look at him and what he's done recently, even in the matchup against Islam Makhachev prior, he is a ball of dynamite. He's a guy that can shoot on you, mix it up in the wrestling, and get it dirty. He's a guy that can do that, but you're not really seeing that happen too much with Islam Makhachev. However, when you're looking at Arman, he is very explosive and all phases of his game, even in the striking. I'll say the one thing that could get Arman in trouble early in this matchup is he'll have a wild moment or two. He'll lose position either on the ground, or he'll have to come in, shoot that double leg when he doesn't want to. Maybe lose some position there. Or in the striking department, there are some times where he got caught. There's some times where he gets a little bit wild. However, that wildness is the secret sauce to his greatness, because that makes him very dangerous, because the athleticism, the explosiveness, from what we're seeing here from Arman Tsarukyan, a guy that's not afraid to mix it up, that's not afraid to get dirty here, and against a guy like Islam here that's very defensive, very sound, very nuanced. And you're just looking at the body of work from Arman Tsarukyan. And the best win on his career, easily, Charles Oliveira. And I would like to see that one again. I would like to see that one ran back. But that solidified that he belongs at the top. Even though we've been suspecting all along, that says it. Beneil Dariush getting that knockout, showing you what he can do with that explosion of him, because he can really be a ball of dynamite. However, when you look at that Gamrot fight, that is the thorn in his side with a lot of MMA fans. However, you watch that fight, you know that decision maybe not been one of the better ones. However, there are times, like the Silva fight, he'll get cracked here and there, and that could be what reins him in against Islam Makhachev. But the thing about Islam Makhachev, when we're looking at him in this matchup, I mean, you look at the body of work here, it's undeniable. Dustin Poirier, Volk twice, Charles Oliveira, just like Arman Tsarukyan. And then before that, not like the greatest matchups here, not like the greatest run of guys to go through, but you do have like a Dan Hooker down there. You got Bobby Green, Old King Green. But when we're looking at Islam Makhachev here, very sound. That wrestling, world class. The striking, very defensive, hard to crack. Can box with a guy like Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier looked good in that matchup. Dustin Poirier lets you know that he's not a machine, he's a man. We could definitely say that. Volk 2 in the first matchup, that went to the decision. Poirier took him deep into that fight. That being said, he's a man, he's not a machine. We've seen that in some of these fights. And what could really hinder Islam Makhachev is the wildness of when Arman Tsarukyan likes to go off cuff, be explosive with that striking, and that could put him at bay. That could get him in trouble. But when I really think about this fight, when I think about what's going on, I think about the judges, I think about what Arman has to do. He has to put Islam away. I just can't see them going to decision and it looking good for Arman Tsarukyan, because if it's tight, if it's razor thin, it's going to go to Islam Makhachev. But Islam Makhachev, we're going to the interviews here. There's been a lot of them. He believes Arman's the same fighter as what he was 5 years ago, I think if you look at all the fights that Arman's been in these last few years, you can definitely say that's not the truth. You can definitely say he's not the same fighter. You can definitely say he has been developing over time. And I think Islam, he's just not worried. I think he's got his game plan. He's just going to do what he's going to do. He's going to go out there. He's going to go up against Arman. We're going to wrestle. We're going to take him down. We're going to get the handcuff. We're going to really, really put it to him like we're used to. However, when we're looking at this, Arman had a 3 weeks notice. He was just 22 years old, just a young lad. And honestly, going into the UFC, and you know about Islam Makhachev because you're around the same region. He mentioned that in one of the interviews going into this week. And very excited to fight Islam at that time. And excited to get to experience. That was a long time ago. That's a long time ago. Vastly different fighter now. Very, very technical in the wrestling. Very highly skilled, world class. And this is going to make this a dogfight again. This is going to be a fun one to watch. I've been waiting for this fight since that moment. And I've been waiting for this fight more and more. Excited. Just hoping it would materialize. And it's happening. It's happening. And Arman Tsarukyan is very explosive. He's been working on that gas tank. He's looking to really get that belt. That's what he's been saying in all the interviews. Everywhere he's going, he's doing his podcast rounds. And that's what he's mentioning the whole time. And the other thing he's mentioning is after he wins it, getting those money fights. That's what he's mentioning. We're going to get to that later. But another thing Arman's saying, he's not as good as what people think. He's beatable. When he fought him last time, he was 22 years old. And we saw some chinks in the armor. We saw that with Islam Makhachev. But the thing about this, you're going to see that with any top-tier fighter. You're going to see chinks in the armor. You're going to see that Islam Makhachev is so sound. He is a very sound fighter. It's very hard to beat a guy like that. That's sound on the ground. That's just getting better striking. Every time we see him, he's better on the feet. Every time. He pulls out something that he's a little bit better at, or he'll show you something a little bit on the ground that you didn't think of. That is something that we might see in this fight. Arman Tsarukyan, when you compare him against the other fighters Islam Makhachev went up against, he kind of does have that secret sauce of intrigue due to the world-class wrestling, due to how explosive he is, how quick he can cut the gap. This is going to be a fight that we're going to pay attention to. And a lot of storylines coming into this week saying that he's not invested, that he's coming from a rich family. However, a lot of MMA creators, Michael Bisping in general, is right along with that. He mentioned that in one of his vlogs on his YouTube channel, and that was brought up by somebody on there talking about how good you would be if you were 100% invested. However, when you're looking at him right now, I can't say that he's not invested. We're training at high altitude in the mountains where Hamzat was training at. We're going to have that cardio. It's definitely there. We're definitely seeing that. But the money fight thing, from what the Weasel posted, what a lot of MMA creators are going off of here, Arman Tsarukyan mentioned on the Pound for Pound podcast just a few days ago. I watched that, and it was pretty interesting. And I think a lot of people take Arman out of context a lot when he speaks, because he's blunt, he's to the point, but he also plays around, but he's also very serious when he plays around. So, honestly, you do not know what you're going to get. Mainly what he said is he's looking forward to this fight here, and then after that, it's going to be straight business. And what this business is going to look like, he's going to take the fight that makes him the most money. So, if he does beat Islam, what's going to be the fight that makes him the most money? And what's going to be offered to him? It's going to be the Islam rematch. And it's not like he's looking to jump weight classes or anything. He's not talking heavy like that. Honestly, he's thinking about money, and that's part of it, as it should be, and he's just being honest with his approach. Honestly, he's not really coming out just saying crazy things. He's just being honest, true raw, off the cup, talking about what he plans to do after the belt, And some fighters, or a lot of fighters, they just don't do that. And Arman Tsarukyan is that type of dude. That's how he's wired. He'll give you honesty right off the top of his lips and tell you what he thinks. And that's what you're getting from him. So, more than likely, if he does win, you're getting the money fight between him and Islam Makhachev. And I believe, I did not watch the video, but it was a headline that he would rematch him if given the opportunity, which makes sense. And it would be the money fight coming up. So, honestly, it was more clickbait material coming into this week. Another thing we're looking at going into the storylines of this matchup. I'm not going to waste my energy trying to take down Islam in this fight. I'm going to try to strike him. And honestly, and you're just coming in with how explosive you are and how multifaceted your game is. But when you're thinking about this fight and you're thinking about guys talking on the mic here, you're also thinking about fighters just saying things to get the other guy thinking, not revealing your full game plan. But I believe we're going to get an aggressive approach. I believe we're going to try and get Islam reacting a little bit. That's what I'm trying to gather from this. That's what I'm gathering from him training in high altitudes, what he looks like right now. I believe we're going to get an Arman Tsarukyan that's ready to come in full blast, first round, no messing around. We're going to be aggressive. We're not going to pull any punches. And we do not have anything holding us back. We do not. So we're going to roll up in this matchup and we're going to get aggressive with this. I definitely see that happening. Islam Makhachev come back in the media saying Charles Oliveira almost submitted Islam. And it's what I said earlier in the video, that he can get wild, he can give up position, and that could potentially happen. And I could definitely see that happening in this fight. I can definitely see Arman Tsarukyan doing some good things in this matchup, and then him getting too wild. Him having that moment where he just makes the wrong move and gets caught. Whether on the ground, on the feet. Islam's very defensive on the feet. And Arman, he can be wild. He can take those risks. But that's also a good part of his game because that allows him to get in there, allows him to use his explosiveness, and allows him to push you back on your heels. Islam Makhachev could take advantage of that, could find him. That could potentially happen. So that makes this a very risky fight for a guy like Arman Tsarukyan. When I look at this matchup, Arman has to put him away. I cannot see Arman taking this decision, coming away with it, winning a split decision. He either has to dominate, which I do not see anybody dominating Islam Makhachev, or he has to catch him. And that could potentially happen with how explosive he is, but that could happen with any fight with Islam, and it hasn't happened yet. Well, it has, but not recently, considering we rejuvenated our approach to striking. And Arman, on the ground, can get himself caught, and we're also looking at Islam. He's not a machine, he's a man. We've seen that a few times in the cage. We've seen that. Not 100% perfect. Will allow himself to get touched here and there. And it will happen, probably in this fight. Arman will probably have his moment. But I feel like Islam is probably going to find that opening, that hole, to finish this. Arman has to finish this fight. He has to finish it somewhere in the middle of the rounds. He has to catch Islam. That's how he's going to have to win this matchup. That's how I feel. That's how I see it. And Arman in that Gamrot fight, go back and watch that one. I believe that's a dub for Arman and the MMA community. If you really look at it, a lot of people feel that way too, but you'll catch Reddit, and that's a big hindrance to his profile. If he was dominant, like in Islam Makhachev, we wouldn't be to that point anyways. We wouldn't have to go to the judges. It would have been finished. You could definitely make that statement. However, when I look at Arman Tsarukyan, we're very explosive. We're very technical. We're world class on the ground. When I look at Islam Makhachev, this is a fighter that's sound. One of the greatest fighters of all time. Probably will end up being the GOAT if we continue this, if we go up to 170. When I look at this matchup, Arman has to finish Islam. I do not see Arman taking him to school for 5 rounds. That's going to be a hard one to do. If it's razor tight, even if it's good for Arman, I feel like it's going to Islam. I feel like it's going to Islam. So my bet's Islam. But how Islam could be fucked in this matchup is if Arman comes in explosive, comes in with no regrets, closing the distance, closing the gap, and just catches him. And that could potentially happen, either on the ground or on the feet. There's a possibility for that. That's why in the beginning of this video, I said that this fight is going to be a science experiment, because it's going to be technical all over the board, on the ground and on the feet. It could end quick with how technical it is, because when it's that technical, when it's that up and down with how we can go in this fight, that could potentially happen. If this goes 5 rounds, you will see one of the better fights for 2025. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.